God's Eternal Purpose by Gary Sigler, Chapter 9. I was told, if you speak in tongues, you will be full of the Spirit. Well, I spoke in tongues for years and sure wasn't full of the Spirit. The doctrines will never satisfy you no matter how good they are. But he that is joined to the Lord is one Spirit. God is Spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. I like to read it this way. They that worship him must worship him in spirit and in reality. You can never find God in the mind. You can never find God by studying. You can learn a lot by study, but you will never find him by searching for him with the mind, by going to Bible school or any other intellectual study only. Those things can be an inspiration to lead you to an understanding of God, but you will never understand God with the natural mind. Paul said in Romans 7, verse 22, I delight in the law of God after the inward man. Paul said in another place, my outward man is perishing, but my inner man is renewed day by day. That is what we want. I've prayed for years, God, consume my carnality. And people say, well, if you are wicked, God is going to destroy you. And the Old Testament says that the wicked will be left neither root nor branch. And I say, oh God, leave me not root or branch of that wicked thing that is between my ears. I delight in the law of God after the inward man. But that outward man, I find that whenever I do good, evil is present with me, and whenever I want to do right, that law of sin and death always pulls me down and defeats me. I no longer look to my carnal mind to get better. I simply focus on the inner man, knowing that as I do, that I am strengthened in spirit, which enables me to walk in spirit. I refuse to look at my experience if it does not line up with the truth, because if I look at my experience, I will always be dragged down into that law of sin and death. We simply believe, as the scriptures so clearly teach, that the outward man will perish, but the inward man will be renewed day by day. Romans 8 verse 4, Paul says, the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us, who walk not according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit. So when I talk about the law being our condemner, and the law being the accuser of the brethren, I'm not talking about the law of his life. Because when we begin to focus on the true nature of our being, then we are able, by the power of his Spirit that is in us, to fulfill all the righteous requirements of the law. Never would we want to become lawless. There are people today who still need the law because Paul said in one place the law was not written for the righteous, but for the unrighteous. And if you are unrighteous in your thinking, you need a law. If you are a child in your understanding, you need a law. But there comes a time in your maturity when you grow up and you realize that the law on the outside of you can never save you. It can only condemn you. And then you discover that salvation all along has never been about what I can do. It is about the law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus that comes alive on the inside of me. Romans 8 verse 16 says, the Spirit himself bears witness with our spirit that we are the children of God. Where do we get that witness? From our innermost being. Anybody that has experienced regeneration, there is no way you can tell them they haven't experienced God. That is the only way that you can really know the truth. You cannot know the truth because you hear me speak it. You cannot know the truth because you read what Jesus said in the Bible. You can only know the truth as it's spoken to your inner being by the Spirit. This verse used to really confuse me. Paul said in Galatians 5, verse 16, "This I say then, walk in the Spirit, and you will not fulfill the lusts of the flesh." I knew that was the truth, but how do I walk in the Spirit? I knew that was my problem, but how do I do that? It is so easy. We stumble over it. It is so easy to walk in the Spirit and know you are walking in the Spirit because you can only do it one time in your life, and that is right now. It is so simple because right now is the day of salvation. Now, if you can believe it, you can experience all the heavenly realms that there are. Right now, you can be as John was on the Isle of Patmos. And you can be taken into the spirit of revelation, and you can begin to have revealed to you the same things that John had revealed to him on the Isle of Patmos. So much of the time we dwell on things in the past. If we're not dwelling on the past, then we are dwelling on what may happen in the future. To walk in the Spirit, we must be focused on the present moment, knowing that all things are ready and open to us in this present moment. Many today are focused on spiritual warfare. Warfare is not about a devil on the outside of you warring against you. That is not the warfare. The warfare is right between our ears. That is why Paul said that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down reasonings and imaginations, and every high thought that comes against the knowledge of God. That is our warfare. Every thought that comes to you that would accuse you and make you think negative about yourself or anyone else. The only warfare that we need to conquer is the warfare in the battle of our mind. You know the great battles that religion tells us about in Revelation, all those battles of Armageddon and all those big monsters. That is all taking place right within us. The battle of Armageddon is the battle for your mind. There is nothing on the outside of you that is the problem. All the judgments and all the things that come in the book of Revelation, all the seals that are broken and opened are the seals that are over you. And some of the trials and some of the tribulations and some of the hardships and some of the suffering, it is all to break those seals that are over your mind and over your throat and over your heart. The warfare is all about breaking the seals to release the powerful seed of His life that is within us. The whole Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, is an unveiling of Christ within His holy temple, His people. We are both Cain, flesh, and Abel, spirit. We are Isaac, spirit, and Ishmael, flesh. We are both wheat, spirit, and tare, carnal. So the key is to walk in the Spirit. How do we do that? Well, as I said, the only time you can do it is now. Right now, I can sing, "Thank you, Jesus." I can begin to pray in the Spirit, and I love to do that. But if I think about what am I going to do 10 minutes from now, I know probably 10 minutes from now, I'm going to fall back into the flesh. You don't think about what is going to happen 10 minutes from now, but right now. I can stand in His presence, and I can be so grateful, and I can say, "Father, I am so thankful to know that I am a son of God. I am so thankful to know that I am simply a reproduction of Christ on this earth. I am the connection between heaven and earth. I am so thankful to know that we as a corporate man, we too are a patterned son. We are an expression of who you are." As I begin to live my life in fellowship and admiration and gratitude, I am walking in the Spirit. If perhaps 10 minutes from now my mind gets the best of me again and I fall into another habit, or I do something, right now is the time to turn and say, Father, I am so thankful that you are not holding that against me. All it tells me is that, Father, I am not yet perfected. I still have habits. I still have things in my life that I'm not proud of, but I am so grateful to know that everything that I've ever done has been covered by your precious love. It's so easy to walk in the Spirit. Another way to experience walking in the Spirit is this way. It says in John 1:17, "The law was given by Moses, but grace and truth came by Jesus." Take your pick. Which would you have, law or grace and truth? It's your choice. You can choose to put yourself under that bondage of trying to improve yourself, or you can simply learn to do as God does. Receive yourself as you are now and be perfectly relaxed in knowing that, yes, this is the way I am now, but this is not going to be how I always am. I know that by the power of His Spirit in me, I will one day rise and defeat every enemy within me. It's not about what I do. It is about trusting the Spirit within me. So the law was given by Moses, but grace and truth, I like that verse read this way. The law came by Moses, but enjoyment and reality came by Jesus Christ. A root word for grace is enjoyment, and truth means reality. I'll tell you what, I learned this so many years ago. Enjoyment and reality came by Jesus Christ. I have told people for years, simply learn to enjoy God. Grace and reality, enjoyment and reality. No matter what the issue, no matter what habit you have, if you can have a clear understanding that God is never angry with you, no matter what you do. God has a heart that is always longing for all of His creation to be delivered from the bondage of corruption. He never holds an angry thought, or He never has anything to do to you except to love you and to bless you. If you have that understanding, then no matter how bad you are, you can at least learn to appreciate the gift of God, which is to save you by His life. The gift of God was to become flesh, and then to reveal to you your true nature and the love of your Father. If you want to know what God is like, just watch and listen to what Jesus did and said. I discovered in my weakest moments, sometimes when I would fail tremendously, I discovered in that condition how to turn to the Spirit within, not the Spirit without. But I began to discover there was such a preciousness of His Spirit within, and that no matter how many times I fell into various habits, I simply learned to turn to the Spirit within and begin to appreciate the fact that God loved me regardless. And if I never was able to change my life, God would love me no less. When you understand that God is only there to encourage you, to bless you, and to love you, that gives you the faith, as Hebrews says, the boldness to enter into the presence of God, to find the grace to help in the time of your need. The religious system would have you think that when you fall into adultery, or that you fall into a drunken stupor, or that any number of things should happen, that religion would have you think that God is disappointed with you. God is angry with you, and you will face a severe judgment. God doesn't judge us in that way. In fact, it says in the Old Testament, Jeremiah 2, verse 19, "Thine own wickedness shall correct thee, and thy backslidings shall reprove thee." When something bad happens to you, it's not God punishing you, because there is still in operation a law that is called sowing and reaping. If you sow to the flesh, believe me, you are going to reap corruption. But it has nothing to do with how God feels towards you. It has nothing to do with God turning his back on you. It has nothing to do with keeping you out of the very presence and awesomeness of God, unless you believe it does, unless you believe the preachers that will tell you that sin separates you and alienates you from God. It does not. The thing that separates you and alienates you from God is your belief in what they tell you about separation.